I remember it like yesterday when Matt came down the stairs and said so casually with a smile, I booked a one-way ticket to Santiago, Chile. I thought to myself, is this real? Can we really leave our amazing careers, friends, and family? Fast forward 10 months later, after all the hard conversations, endless checklists, and heartfelt goodbyes, we were heading to the airport with one backpack each, about to set out for a multi-year adventure around the world. Filled with excitement, we had no idea what to expect, but we knew it would be a fun ride. Join us as we share what we are learning on our journey of a lifetime. This is Passport Joy Travel Talk with Nikki and Matt Javitt.
All right, thank you for listening wherever you might be in the world today. We've been downloaded in over 53 countries at this point, so that's really exciting for us as we try to spread the word on travel and all the amazing experiences and this crazy journey that we're on over 17 months into this now, and it's a blast. I'm Matt Javitt with Nikki Javitt. We are the couple that is traveling full-time and documenting on this podcast and on our website, passportjoy.com. So as always, we're trying to just share information to help you strategize, plan, think about other opportunities in the world where you might want to travel to, whether it's a weekend getaway, week-long vacation, or if you're trying to plan something like we're doing, if you're trying to get 3, 6, 9 months out of, maybe pause your career and you go travel for long-term travel, that's the stuff we're trying to share with you on this podcast. We're currently sitting in a lovely home outside, about 20 minutes outside of Zurich, Switzerland. It's a town called Horgen. We are doing a pet sit. We're going to get into this more in the future. This is our first one where we're doing a pet sit. We're watching 2 cats. The homeowners went on vacation, and part of that is they need somebody to watch their cats, and we are doing that for free. So we have to get this amazing house that we're in. It is absolutely the most space that we've had on this journey so far, and it is pretty awesome. So that's where we're recording this today. And today we're going to get into Poland. We just wrapped up about 3 weeks in Poland, where we saw Warsaw, Krakow, Auschwitz, and we're going to talk about that. Let's sprinkle in a little bit about Bucharest, Romania, because we were there, but we were sick on that. Talk about that a little bit as well. But that's what we're going to talk about today and get into the details of that. And as always, if you're just getting caught up, or if you just got introduced to this podcast and you're saying, who are these guys? The easiest way to do is to check out the Journey So Far tab on passportjoy.com. It's at the top there. Go to Journey So Far. It breaks down everywhere that we've been month by month around the world. As we started out in South America, then we went to Southern Europe, 2 months in India, over to Vietnam, South Africa for 3 months, and all the different places in between. We break that down at the Journey So Far tab, and it gives you insight and links. So check that out if you're wondering all the places we've been. And then if you break away before I recap on the end, please sign up for the newsletter at passportjoy.com. This is where we send weekly highlights on Thursdays for everything that we're kind of going through, the things we're experiencing, and then the stuff that we're looking at ahead. And we just kind of share tidbits that we might not get into on this podcast. All right, let's get into this episode. Cześć. That is hello in Poland. I struggled with it every time I attempted to say it. So we are going to talk Poland, Warsaw and Krakow, and then touch on Bucharest a tad. But what was crazy about Poland to me was the long and rich history that I thought I knew a little bit about, but apparently I knew nothing about. So over the about 3 weeks that we spent there, I just kind of dove back in. There's several YouTube videos that I watched that really painted the picture well for everything the country had gone through. And as I was talking to friends and relatives back home about the Polish history, they seemed surprised as well by some of the facts that were coming out, and I was talking to them about. So I just want to give a high level overview of the things that I learned that were kind of shocking, and then we'll jump into each city and to share the thoughts on both Warsaw and Krakow. So because of the country's geopolitical location between the East and the West, there's been a ton of wars and uprising over the years. There was a time when Poland was the largest country in Europe. There was like this Lithuanian, Polish partnership at one point where it was just massive. And then it was erased. So Poland wasn't even a country for 123 years. It was wiped off the map completely. And then in 1918, which is 100 years, they'll be celebrating that in November around the country. In 1918, it reappeared on the map for Europe. So then it became, it was the second Polish Republic that was established. And this was kind of cool as we were talking to different people that we met along the way, was the idea that Poland is still a very, very young country. And then through all that chaos over the years, they kept their heritage alive. So even as it went away for 123 years, there was still a very rich Polish history that they came back and kind of reestablished some things, reestablished some, I guess, cultural significance for themselves, and they continued on. So then it gets reestablished in 1918. And then 1920, they stopped a massive Soviet Union invasion that was aimed at Western Europe in the Battle of Warsaw. Okay, so they stopped them, recovered for 19 years, and then on September 1st, 1939, that was when the Nazi Germany invaded them, that began World War II. And then less than 3 weeks later, the Soviet Union launched an unexpected attack on the western border. So they're getting attacked on both sides, and essentially in World War II, they're just devastated. 6 million Polish citizens died in the war, including 3 million Polish Jews. And then after that, the country was basically just laid in ruins. They will get into Warsaw, but they essentially wiped out Warsaw, but they did not wipe out Krakow. And that's what we'll talk about that as well. But after the war ended, then it became like this. The Republic of Poland was basically a Soviet satellite state. And then the boundaries shifted constantly, boundaries as far as their borders, and then essentially lost a lot of its traditional multi-ethnical character and became a country of basically just Poles, a strong Polish population. So through all the difficult years of communism, their hope arose in 1978 when a guy by the name of Karol, I'm going to mess up his last name, Wojtyła, better known as Pope John Paul II, comes out of Krakow. So as he comes out of Krakow, then there's like this, the fact that he was the first non-Italian pope, and I think over 400 years, there's just like this hope comes out of the country. And then they began, 2 years later, 1980, the Solidarity was founded, being the first mass independent trade union in communist states. So at this point, they start to break away a little bit. And then the first elections of the Third Polish Republic were held in 1989. And then the country entered a period of transition from a communist state to a capitalist market system and a liberal parliamentary democracy. So, and then that's when the modern Polish state arose. So they've changed a bunch. And then now Poland has had a constitution, which was signed in 1997. Became a member of NATO in 99 and joined the EU, the European Union, in 2004. So when you think about Poland, you think it's like old and it's been around forever and it's got this long, rich history, which it does. But when you talk about it as a one of the newer nations, it's still really young. And that's what was cool as we talked. I had a chance to interact, went to a co-work, and I met a few people at gyms, and Nikki and I went out to a restaurant with a local in Krakow. It was just cool to hear how optimistic they are about Poland because of the newness of it, and the economy is beginning to really grow because of everything they offer with the infrastructure, good English speaking talent. And so it's weird that I'm coming into Poland thinking it was like this old country and we're going to get to see a different part of Eastern Europe. And I walked away with this like, wow, the opportunities in this country are amazing and there's so much to be offered. And so now we're going to talk a little bit about Poland in general.
Yeah, so Poland in general, when we got to Warsaw, full disclosure, I was still a little bit sick from this bad cold that I had. And so I didn't get to do a lot, but there's two main things that we got to do while we were there. So part of my birthday present is that Matt had gotten me some Beyonce, Jay-Z concert tickets. So we got to see that, which was so much fun. And it was actually my first Beyonce concert ever, which is, if anyone knows me well, kind of a weird thing because she's one of my favorite artists and I've never seen her before live. And so that was just like a fun treat to see. And the tickets we had were general admission, but if you got there and kind of like weaseled your way up front, you could get as close as you wanted to the stage, and it was standing room only, but we managed to get really good standing seats, or not seats, but standing visibility to the stage, and you could basically see everything. So that was a blast.
Yeah, and just my thoughts on the concert. I'm always in awe of these, especially those two, Beyonce and Jay-Z. Obviously, they're a married couple, super successful, ton of money in the bank, don't really need to do concerts, but the fact that they performed at the level that they did for as long as they did and like brought their A game, and the crowd was amazing. I'm always, because Jay-Z, I believe, is older than I am, and Beyonce is probably... She's Nicki's age. So to see these, they're at a point in life where they don't necessarily need to be doing this, but they're doing it at such a high level. It's always impressive to me that the work and time and effort and energy that has to go into perform at that level is just freaking awesome. And they brought it. They really brought it. And the crowd responded well. It was neat. It was probably more of a Beyonce crowd, but there was definitely a lot of guys around us that knew the lyrics to the Jay-Z songs as well. And there were a few younger people tossing their hair around and dancing wild right next to us as well. So it was an awesome event, though. Something that is one of those, for me, the European concert thing has always been something that I love to attend. And we had a chance to do 2 of those while in Poland.
Yeah, just a little bit more about the concert. So they had a lot of performer aspects when you want to talk about just like the dance aspect of it. So Beyonce definitely had her and her performers that were dancers behind her dancing. And then they had a lot of video montage behind them, videos from their personal life. So they had like videos from their actual wedding, footage from them just like doing some like theatrical performances, videos from their travels around the world. And Jay-Z did a lot of his old school songs from like his EPs, back in the day, to some new songs. And then they also performed a lot of their songs from their new album. And she did some of her stuff from like her Beyonce, like single albums and stuff like that. So it was just a good blend and mix just all around. I'd highly suggest, if you have a chance to go to one of their on the run tours, whether it's in the United States or international, to go and get those tickets. They are a little bit more on the expensive side, but it's definitely worth it. It's more of like an entertainment thing to see, but definitely worth it. Another thing that we did get to do was I'm sure if you guys have listened to any of our pods before, that we love seeing any type of sports or things like that. But we went to another racetrack, and I don't even know how to say the name, so I'm not even going to try to butcher it, but we'll put the link in our show notes when we're done. But it was their version of what would be like the Kentucky Derby. And so they had was it called the Poland Derby? It was a Poland Derby. So it was called Derby Day. And we knew that before going, because I had researched just like is there a racetrack where we're going? And I told Matt, hey, there is. And, a matter of fact, it's going to be their Derby Day when we go. And so Matt had reached out to the event coordinator and just said, hey, we're going to be in town. We don't really, have we have the attire, but we don't have the whole hats and things. Is it okay if we still go? Because they had a really strict dress code to be able to attend this event. And she was super nice, and she hit us back and she said, yeah, you're most welcome to come. And she gave us free entry, which was really nice, because the day that we went, it was fairly cold, and we were able to go inside and out if we wanted to. And it was like a VIP area, and we had access, to be able to purchase food and beverage or whatever. But it was just nice to be able to be indoors if we wanted to, and then see the racetrack from inside, or go outside if we would like to. But we did end up going to their version of a TJ Maxx. It was called TK Maxx. And I actually verified with my friend Emily. Her dad is VP of operations at the TJ Maxx in Boston. And she said TK Maxx is owned by TJ Maxx. And it's very similar. It's like the UK version of it, or European version of it, sorry. But we got some hats. And so we wore the hats here to be able to look the part. And so it was super fun. And we went to their derby. But yeah, so another thing that I did want to mention is Poland in general has great transportation. options. They have the, Uber that you can use, very, very cheap. We used a lot of Uber while we were here just because it was very convenient, dial it up on our phone. But they also do in Warsaw specifically, they have the metro that you can use. They do not have that in Krakow, but they also do have buses and trams and trolleys that you can just hop on and hop off. You can buy your tickets at little kiosks around the city and validate them before you get on the trams or buses or trolleys. And it's really easy and super convenient to be able to travel all throughout the city. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so Warsaw in general, obviously, like Nikki said, she was under the weather. So I basically went out. We did have one day together. We walked around Old Town, which that part of the city was actually, like I said, part of the punishment for the anti-Nazi uprising. Hitler ordered that the Polish capital at the time, be flattened. So they basically wiped Warsaw off the map. They had to rebuild. So during that rebuilding process, it's mostly based off of 18th century paintings, but it's also very wide. Like it seems like a modern, almost Midwest US city, because it's like wide and it's kind of spread out, but there's a lot of pockets of area where there's a lot of restaurants and bars and pubs. So Nikki and I left Warsaw really digging it, because I think it's a city of about 1.6 million, but it doesn't feel like that. It's basically a city that has a lot of different pockets of neighborhoods. So you get the kind of the city vibe, because the trains are going through, the trams are going through, there's buses, and it has this great like walking city life where you can get in anywhere within 20 minutes. But shopping, restaurants, it's got all the stuff that you want. And then yeah, a lot of parks sprinkled, but it's not like the Western European parks. These parks are just, I even talked to a guy that was from from Warsaw. And we just talked to him about it. And the upkeep on the parks there just isn't at the level that we saw in Munich, in Germany, and in Amsterdam and stuff like that. But they haven't spread out throughout in Warsaw. And it's a nice town. We really dug the vibe. Stuff stayed open later, and it was neat. So as Nikki and I, we had a chance to walk around the old town, and we posted a couple of photos, and people were saying, man, is it really that clean? And absolutely, it was extremely clean. It had a lot of different colors to it. It was a lot of fun. And like I said, very walkable. So I had a chance to kind of just do some stuff that I was hoping to do. There was a really nice gym there. Honestly, the nicest gym that I've gone to since our travels. They had a hot and wet sauna, great workout facility, and there wasn't a lot of people there, and it was a very reasonable price. That was a lot of fun. I played in a poker tournament they've got a few casinos there. So I had a chance to play in a poker tournament. Mostly everybody at the table talked Polish, but I did have a chance to interact with a few guys there. So that was neat. Did not do as well as I had hoped. So that sucked. But, and then, I had a chance. She's not my cousin, but so Javit. So my heritage is Polish, from both sides of my family. My Javit, my last name Javit, comes from the Polish spelling Dziewit. It's spelled that way, but it's said as Javit phonetically in Polish. So when I showed people, and then Nikki did research, we found a lady, her name is Natasha Javit, spelled with the DZ version, in Warsaw. So we reached out, had a chance to met with her at a botanical gardens after a bunch of emails back and forth, and we hit it off, had a blast. She's near my age. She's actually at the age of my brother, my older brother. And it was awesome. We actually FaceTimed with my parents, and she's a fashion designer, and it was just so neat to spend. We probably spent 2 hours with her, just catching up, hearing her story, her family story. And it was neat. There's probably a minor chance we might be relatives from some line, but regardless, it was pretty cool to get a chance to touch base with somebody that could be my heritage and hear her version of Warsaw and Poland all together. So that was awesome. And then I guess other little highlights for me in Warsaw was the food was unbelievable, especially when it comes to Nikki's palate and what she likes to eat with the vegan side and vegetarian options. It was unbelievable how many vegan and vegetarian options there are in the city. And that goes to Krakow as well, is the idea that when I talked to a couple locals about it, and the fact that I cannot believe that there's this many options for vegans, and It's the most, yeah. So in our 17 months of travel, it's the most that we've seen so far on the road as far as one city having this many options. Every corner has options of vegan and vegetarian food. And I asked a couple of locals, and they basically said that, yeah, it's kind of the fad. It's the fashion of the time. So everybody's jumping on board and they're doing it in a big way. So it's kind of one of those things that probably somebody was doing really well at it. Then another person started doing really well at it. And so everybody's like, well, we got to make vegan food because that's going to bring us the most business. But they're doing a really good job of it. Great, tasty food with a lot of options, a lot of fresh options. So I guess that's, as a whole, we left, it stunk because Nikki, like she said, was under the weather, but we really loved I in particular, because I had a chance to get out on my feet and walk around the city a bunch. I loved it. And I probably talked to 7 or 8 people that when I told them how much I loved Warsaw, when I was in Warsaw, they would say, well, have you been to Krakow? It's spelled Krakow. The locals call it Krakow, but they would say, have you been to Krakow? And I said, no, we're going there next. And they're like, oh, wait till you go there. It's so much better than this place. So they kept talking about how great Krakow was. So I was like, okay, I can't wait to be there. But we really loved our time in Warsaw. So then when we transitioned to Krakow, expectations were high. At that time, we had a Pearl Jam concert the second day that we landed. We were by the way, so in Warsaw, we had a really nice Airbnb. We were on the 5th floor, overlooked huge spatially. So we had the bed wasn't great because it was a rollout from a couch, but a sofa bed, but huge kitchen, nice bathroom. It was a nice situation. And then we moved to Krakow, where we stayed in the Jewish quarters part of the city. And so Krakow, if Warsaw is about 1.5 to 1.7 million, Krakow is about, I think, 500,000. So it's smaller, it's more intimate. And as Warsaw was destroyed during World War II, Krakow did not get destroyed. It was one of those places that I'm not sure if it's a rumor, it's a truth, but Hitler's family was from Krakow because at one time Krakow was an Austrian city. So I think Hitler saw it as an Austrian location, so he didn't want to destroy it, whatever. But it kept all of its history and all of it still has the mid 16th century vibe and feel and look to it. So it's pretty awesome. But we stayed in a place in the Jewish quarter that was more expensive based on our budget. So we ended up getting this kind of almost the tiniest studio Airbnb that we've stayed in thus far. And we were there for about 11 days. So it was a tighter quarter, but it wasn't that bad because the location was freaking awesome. So again, Krakow survived the bombing, has kept all of its, I guess, Middle Ages type of feel and charm, and it's extremely romantic. And there's parts of it that's stunning, and it's very friendly to walk around. It's they do have these parks around the city. It's got, some of the city has walls that were part of, it was essentially like a walled-in city at one point, but they destroyed the walls during the war. And
it's similar to Dubrovnik in that it is a walled-off city. It's just not similar to Dubrovnik in that fact that it's not like overlooking the sea. But these ancient walls were actually kept intact because people fought for that. Like specific architects back in the day fought for that to keep, the history of the city alive. And it was a really important piece of the city to be kept around for the history.
Yeah. And so we had 2 amazing walking tours. We've repeated it in the past that these free walking tours, you got to take advantage of them whenever you travel, if you have the time to do it. But these were probably the best walking tours that we've had because of the education that came with the tour guides. I think on this tour, she had her master's in art and she was a local. She understood master's in art history. She understood it so well. And they brought a passion to the story because you could tell they cared so much about the city and the country. So it was, free walkative. It's actually on freewalkingtours.com. And if you go there, they have many Poland walking tours and they're expanding and growing and they're really good at their job. But again, so we did that tour. It was about a 2.5 hour tour around the main market square of Old Town. I went to several different parts. We had a chance to see, of the highlights, there was St. Mary's Church. There was this big town hall tower where a guy blows the trumpet on the hour every hour. And I say a guy, it's many different people that take turns, but it's above the city. There's a big walking area and there's a lot of shops and stuff like that. But it's mostly a lot of big like churches and buildings. We even walked by the Bishop's Palace, that's where Pope John Paul stayed when he was there, and when he was a pope, he would come back and stay there as well. And there's this window, it's called the Papal window, where he would, as the story goes, he would actually look out the window and talk to the locals that would go out there and ask him questions and whatnot. So he was very much a man of the country, and he would come back and visit that way. And then I guess moving on to the Jewish quarters, also called Kazimierz. They said that term quite often, but it was a place where the Polish Jews and the Polish Catholics lived together for a very long time, side by side in this community. And at one point, so if you can imagine, like I was talking about the history of Poland, at one point, all the Jews, I wouldn't say all of them, a lot of the Jews in Europe were being pushed out of their respective countries, and they were coming to Poland because it was an inviting area for them, because of not only the country was inviting them from an economic reason, and it was just culturally inviting for all of them. So at one point, Poland had the highest population of Jews in the world. And it was basically the Jewish capital, and Krakow was the home to many of these folks. At one point, it was 25% of the city was from the Jewish community. Today, that's not the case. We've heard a wide range of different numbers, and at one point, we even heard that it was like maybe 1,000 Jews left in the city. So today, the Jewish quarter is a very kind of peculiar place because it's got this amazing, obviously, history and culture, and there's a lot of traditions there, but you feel this sadness because of the kind of the lost world that it was, and it was all the history that comes with it. It just feels like, as cool as it is, because there's this great nightlife now and all these restaurants and pubs and stuff, and it's just an exciting place to be, and it's the quaintness of it. It's very much on top of each other, but you just feel this sadness of it. And I'll tell you, the one thing that helped me during the tour was I rewatched Schindler's List 2 or 3 days before we had gone on this tour, because they actually talk about the movie quite often. They talk about, we had a chance to go to the ghetto, and we had a chance to see the Schindler factory and kind of walk to different places where they shot scenes, because when Steven Spielberg shot the movie, he went back to Krakow and shot scenes there. So that was interesting to be able to just be only 2 days removed from the movie and to be able to see the things that he was referencing on our tour as they brought him up. So I would really recommend, if you think you're going to go to Krakow, to just rewatch the movie, because it is very important into the culture and the history of Krakow, and especially the Jewish quarters. But like I said, it's kind of this weird place where now it's like it's a neighborhood. It's such a fun, cool neighborhood where you've got all these cafes and art galleries, and it's a great vibe during the day. I went to a co-work for about 8 days there, and we would go out to lunch, and you would see all these interesting people walking. Like there's like the cute little parks next to the train as you drive through town and stuff. So it's like this awesome place, but you kind of just feel weird because it's got this deep, dark history that comes with it. So, but it's at the same time, it's somewhere that I really, truly enjoyed for a long time. There's all kinds of synagogues around if you want to visit those. And I don't know, do you want to add anything, Nick?
No, I really enjoyed it. And so our Airbnb that we stayed at, I really liked being in such close proximity to everything. And I highly suggest that if you go to Krakow, that you pick a place that's close to all these places, just because you don't want to miss out. And although everything is pretty much very close in walking distance, I feel like we were able to experience everything just because we were able to walk around like all day long, and just walking out of our front door and like having access to everything was just a really, I don't know, a good twist to it.
Yeah, I agree. It was very nice that way. And then just to kind of wrap up on Krakow, again, the co-work, if you have to do work, a lot of people just jump to Starbucks and stuff like that over and over and over. I would suggest, if you can find good co-works, a lot of these especially these European cities, a lot of places around the world. I was actually talking to the guys at the co-work there, that these co-works are popping up over and over. And the idea is you go in, you get like a daily or a weekly or a monthly membership, and then you just you bring your laptop in, you set up shop, and you work. And that was the case here. It was actually it was California co-work, and there was about seven or eight people working on a daily basis on kind of freelancer projects. And there was another kind of like a mini company that just started, a US based small company that just started. But it's awesome because they're all working on their own projects. Everybody's real friendly, inviting, and nice. You get a chance to go to lunch, understand what they're doing, but also understand about their life. I had a chance to ask questions about obviously like the World Cup and stuff that's going on locally. But it's a great way to get a chance to know people and then get work done, because Nikki had a few points where the Wi-Fi was struggling at home, but I was at the co-work banging stuff out because their Wi-Fi was awesome. They had amazing coffee, and it was just a great environment to be in. So I highly suggest finding co-works when you travel. It's a good idea. And then I guess just from a business standpoint, Poland's interesting because they've got highly educated talent that speak English, and there's a wage gap there because the wages are lower because the dollar goes so far in Poland. And they've got amazing infrastructure like I described with the Wi-Fi and the phone systems and the ability to get work done. So like I said, one of the companies that was working out there is a US based company because they're taking advantage of the opportunity to work with this. And that again was part of that younger generation being so excited about the future because more and more jobs are coming to Poland, and it's growing in that way. And it's a really cool, multicultural, kind of diverse atmosphere. So that was really neat. And then I guess just food, right? You guys always like to hear all the crazy stuff I ate. And Poland doesn't have a lot of crazy stuff. Sausage, there's some weird soups I ate, but pierogies, they know about their pierogies. There was a place I went there that had 30, I think it was like 36 different kinds of pierogies. You can get all kinds of different stuff in it. So I had 3 different kinds of that. And that was interesting and neat because we grew up eating pierogies at least once or twice a week in my home. But I guess the weirdest thing I ate, and I did it because we were watching the World Cup match and we just wanted like a snack. I looked at the menu. I didn't believe that what it was is how it was described, but it was described as lard with bacon. And I was just like, okay, there's no way this is lard, like actual lard. But sure enough, it came out, it was lard with bacon, and they had like this bread. So you just kind of spread it on the bread. It felt like I was eating heart disease on a plate because it was just like so thick, so nasty. But in a way, it tasted good. It was really weird, but yeah. Yeah, and pickles. So it was like lard with bacon, a little bit of pickles, and you put it on like this wheat bread. So that was probably the only weird thing I ate while I was there. So transitioning from that into something that's a little bit, I guess, powerful and moving and very humbling is our experience in Auschwitz.
Yeah, so we really did enjoy our time in both Warsaw and Krakow, but, traveling a lot of the times can't always be about visiting the beaches and sunshine and selfies. So I think a lot of times when we travel, we can really think about it as traveling is used to be for powerful and moving experiences and as a form of learning, right? So this experience for us was a very humbling experience. And although some of us, you may be listening to our podcast and say to yourself, well, I've already known all this super dark history about Poland, but for us, it was a huge learning experience. And until we actually went to Auschwitz and came to Poland and were actually here feeling the emotions of everything and of it all, this is something for us that just became such a moving experience. So Auschwitz itself is something that I highly recommend for anyone to do if you have the opportunity to go to Poland and go to Krakow to do. So they offer tours daily, but the problem with the tours is if you want to go and get a guide, they are limited in the language that you can get a guide in. So I would definitely, a couple weeks before you go online, and we will provide that link for you.
It's a simple link. It's just visit auschwitz.org. But you can go online and reserve your time slot in your preferred language with a tour guide. And I highly recommend getting a tour guide because although you can go to Auschwitz and the other concentration camps and just walk around for free, you can't go into certain areas. They're restricted, or go inside the museums and learn about the amazing things that, we learned about without a tour guide. So anyways, the cost to get in is 50 zloty per person, which is roughly about $13 US. And what that allows you is access to Auschwitz I and the Birkenau camp, and then transportation to and from via a bus that they provide you that runs about once every 10 minutes between the two camps. And it is a far distance to walk. So without getting a guide to walk, that would be pretty much impossible unless you got an Uber or brought your car. But anyways, Auschwitz I is like an actual museum, and each building block within Auschwitz I contains different exhibitions and displays, and it tells stories of people in the prisons and the conditions that they were to live in. And just a little background on Auschwitz I. So it was where the Nazis opened the first Auschwitz camp for both men and women. And it's where they carried out some of the very first experiments on the people. And it's where they conducted some of the criminal experiments on the prisoners and stuff. So here you'll see a lot of displayed things like where the Jews had come and brought some of their personal items because they thought that, they were truly moving to a different place and that they were going to start their life all over again. So you see personal possessions and suitcases and just personal items that they brought along. So it's just a very interesting thing to see. And then at Birkenau, the other camp that you get taken to, it's not set up exactly like a museum. It's basically like the remainder of what is left of the concentration camps because some of them have been destroyed. The crematoriums are there, and you can actually walk through those. And the very well-preserved barracks and public outhouses are there as well. And you can actually go in those as well. This camp, in my opinion, is a little bit more raw. It's very peaceful in the fact that you walk around and it's pretty much all outside. So a little bit of background on this is where the Nazis erected most of the machinery of mass extermination. And it's pretty much where they murdered approximately 1 million of the European Jews. So again, this is where you'll be taken from Auschwitz I after about 90 minutes of touring around, and then they take you by bus to Birkenau, just a short 10-minute ride, and then you can spend about 90 minutes here or less. It just depends on how soon you want to get back to wherever you're going, if you have another tour that day or whatever. But you can walk at your own leisure, and you're still with a tour guide. But at the very end, which was cool in my opinion, is that our tour guide, and I'm not sure if this happens with all the tour guides, but she had an access via like a key card where she allowed us to go up this overlook. And it was this place where you could walk up about 2 or 3 flights of stairs, and it overlooked the entire camp of Birkenau, and it would be like the vantage point of what the SS guards would see during the day or at night, and overlooking the special soldier, the SS guards, who were basically in charge of all of the prisoners, and they could see the entire camp from this vantage point, what the prisoners were doing or what they weren't doing. And just to see that was just breathtaking. It just was just like, oh my God, like I can't believe this is what they saw or what they were looking for. So it was crazy because instead of taking the train out, because logistically it was a little bit hard to figure out when we were getting back, and you had to take a train and then a bus. And based on when our tour was in the afternoon, we found a really cool, tour agency that was providing transport for little to next to nothing round trip from basically our front door, door-to-door service round trip. And we took a bus out with about 5 other people and a van, like a personal a van or whatever. And when we all got back in the van, some people were like, what did you think? And did you like the tour? And it's a kind of a difficult question to ask someone, like, did you like that tour? And, for me, like I said, it's just something that I really think that everyone should do if you have the opportunity to travel to Krakow and see. And it's not like a matter of, did you like that tour? It's like, how could you possibly like that? But I think it's very educational. It's something that you should do in your lifetime. Very humbling experience. And you really feel a lot of emotions. And for everyone, it's obviously going to be different why you go there or not. And just in my opinion, it's a definite must-see.
Yeah, it definitely will change you without a doubt. I left changed. Just some of the big things that stuck out for me were the fact that Birkenau housed, they said, over 100,000 people at any given time. And that these trains would come in, these trains would come in, and the German special soldiers, the SS, I guess the leads when the trains are pulling in, would have the ability to decide at that moment if somebody was going to go become a work slave or go straight to death. And through the movement of a finger had the ability to decide that at these camps. And there were just so many things that were so moving and just sad. And that you would see that, because once they found these camps at the end, the Germans attempted to get rid of everything. They were trying to burn everything down because they knew they were going to get in trouble by all the war crimes they were committing. So they were trying to get rid of everything. They were disposing of the gas chambers and trying to get rid of those things. So they were actually burning bodies in the forest nearby. So some of the artifacts that were left by the Jews were shoes and just suitcases of items, and some of the items that were left behind, as our guide pointed out. And by the way, our guide was so amazing, and so I could not imagine doing that job, but she was so good at what she did, and her explanation of it with passion, but at the same time empathy. It was amazing. But you would see some of the items that they brought, they had no idea where they were going, because the items that they were bringing, as far as like shoe shine and cosmetics, they were bringing all these different items with them. And it was just so sad to see all this, and you walk through. But like Nikki said, it was extremely moving, and something that I'm glad that I did, because it changes the way that some of my thought processes moving forward. So it's a tough one, but it's real. It's raw, and it's history. And it's the reason, as she wrapped up, they kept this museum as a reminder of the evil and hatred that's possible. And it's something that we need to continue to reflect on, because it's only 80 years. We're only about 80 years removed from these awful times. So, like Nikki said, if you're in or near Poland, it's something that you could take 2 days to go to Krakow, visit Krakow, and then go to the concentration camps and get that history. And then I guess to just because we were there, and as part of our Eastern European journey, we went to Bucharest, Romania. But the reality is Nikki and I were both sick. So that's what it's kind of a crappy thing about being on top of each other for 24/7 is I got sick. And then obviously I gave it to Nikki. This hasn't happened every time, but it has happened more than once, where one of us will get sick and the other one will get sick as well. So that sucked. And honestly, I think I had the easy part of it, because I was only sick for probably 4 or 5 days, and she struggled with it longer. So I apologize for that. But we were in Bucharest, Romania for about 8 days. And you know what? It was like it's not your typical touristy town. So it was kind of a work town, where as you walked around, people were like just doing their thing, and you didn't get that sense that they're like trying to sell you anything, or it was just like kind of a workman's focused town where people were nice, but it wasn't a place that they usually expect a lot of tourism. Great parks, went to a few different parks there, and the transportation was awesome. Ubers and taxis are readily available. Money went a long way, as I recall, and a lot of decent food options. It wasn't like the vegetarian focused stuff that we saw in Poland, but it was some decent food options there. And there was a few churches that really stuck out that were pretty amazing. There's a St. Anthony's church. St. Anthony's close to my heart, so they do like a pilgrimage every Tuesday. And I went by and there's a long line on Tuesday for the pilgrimage. And I had a chance to go into the church. It was gorgeous, really small church, but gorgeous. And I guess the highlight, if you're to go there, like I said, we didn't have a chance to see a lot of stuff. We did go to the botanical gardens. We saw the parliament, the massive parliament. But the Old Town bar scene is unbelievable because we just walked around and they are like on top of each other, bar after bar, restaurant after restaurant, these cute little side streets. It's all compact in this little area in Old Town. And I could see how it could be a ton of fun if you're like in a bachelor party or in a group setting where you wanted to do 3 or 4 days in Bucharest. It could be a blast because it was your money goes a very long way and there's a lot to do. You could do something different every day in this cute little area, and there's enough outside the city to see that it'd be interesting. So we dug Bucharest. It was one of those. And Romania in itself is somewhere where I definitely want to go back because there's 2 or 3 cities that we talked about. Because as we were flying in we were coming from Lisbon, I talked to a guy. That was the guy that I talked to that he had traveled to 128 countries or something like that. And he was just bragging about how they would go to these Romanian mountains and how gorgeous it was. And it's the home of Dracula and all this stuff. And there's so many like cool things about Romania that I'm sure Nikki and I at some point will go back to visit and check it all out. But our stay there was just one of illness. So, and it had nothing to do with the country. We came sick. So yeah, we had a really nice Airbnb. It was really cheap and it was nice and spread out and we had space there. But great Wi-Fi, and it's a great city to be in. There, I know that there's a lot of digital nomads and expats that are kind of relocating there. Oh, and by the way, and it's out of the Schengen. So we talk about this a lot. At the idea that as a long-term traveler like we're doing, you get 90 days with our passport. Out of 180 days, we can spend 90 days in certain countries in Europe. Romania is not one of those countries. So when we go to Romania, or as we went to Romania, we kind of come off the clock of our 90 days. So that gave us a chance to spend more time elsewhere. So or just extend our time in Europe. So that kind of wrapped that up. But that's it. So that's Krakow, Warsaw, Bucharest, our Eastern Europe tour thus far. And I hope you enjoyed this wrap up. All right, Nikki and I love to read books, and we have put together a list of our favorite books. It's over 30 books at this point at passportjoy.com/books. And this list of books we love is also available on a free PDF that you can download so you can check it out at a different time if you're not on the website or whatnot. So please go there. It's a book, so there's a lot of different, from foundational thought process and mindset, self-talk to life advice and self-improvement, and then also fun stuff, just entertaining books that we've enjoyed, and travel books. Some books that we've read that changed our thought process in travel and how we go about it. So again, passportjoy.com/books, or if you're on the website, just click on the big box on the right-hand side that says books we love, and either go through the list on the website or download that free PDF that I described. And while you're there, if you haven't looked into audible.com yet, you can get 2 free audiobooks with their free trial that you can get there by clicking through the website. I recommend it. It's how I like to consume books, through my headphones while I'm doing long walks or working out. And it's great for your long commutes to work. It's just a fun way to get that content that you want. Again, please check out passportjoy.com/books to find all the books that Nikki and I love to read. And that is it for this episode. Thank you so much again for listening. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. This really helps Nikki and I get in front of new travel listeners that might not be aware of our story and want to hear our tips. And also, thank you so much for leaving great reviews online, like this one from Eddie. This is actually my buddy in Arizona. He said, I love this. I read your newsletters, blogs, and general posts. However, as a friend, what I enjoy the most is hearing your voices. Taking 2 years off and traveling the world isn't my style, but I do love the sharing of knowledge you've gained along the way. It's really cool to hear about those tips and tricks. I also like hearing about the luxuries you miss most. The bourbon really hits home. These episodes are great, and I look forward to hearing more. Thank you so much, Eddie. I really appreciate you taking the time and energy to write that review. As always, I list out all the important links that we talked about today, about the Poland, the walking tour, the different sites we've seen. So please go to the podcast tab at passportjoy.com under the episode listing, and you can see the listing there. You can also follow on with our travel updates in our weekly newsletter that comes out on Thursdays by signing up just by putting your email at passportjoy.com, and then I'll send you all the latest information there, our highlights for the weeks to come and whatnot. As always, you can check out the blog posts, the travel tips, the tools, the books we love, all the things in our social media links at the website. So please go to passportjoy.com to see all that. And we will be back next week to talk about Croatia, if that's something you're interested in. Until then, safe travels to wherever you might be heading to next.